Hey, folks. Good to see you again this week. We're going to be talking about a little bit about career building, what that means to us, and how we can maybe start building a life in writing that will be successful over time. One of the things I liked about the first chapter is how it spent so much time really letting you understand how this is going to be a bit of a challenge in the sense of you have a lot of competition out there today, and it's not a world, the writing world is not a world that is growing quickly. And so you're going to have to be really persistent and consistent in your work towards becoming a professional writer and in your creative endeavors, also partnering them up maybe with other forms of money making, whether that's doing freelance work and writing or getting a job that's outside of direct writing. And there are, several opportunities out there where you can get work that involves the creative side and also writing that's not necessarily considered, creative. So you're going to have to be imaginative. But the biggest thing that the takeaway from that first chapter, I thought, was this idea that if you really want to do this and you're dedicated to it, then you'll find a way. And that is my experience. I didn't become a writer because I just dreamed about it. I actually looked at those opportunities for writing in many different areas along the way, which is one reason why I got a position as a professor. I had studied for many years as a creative writer, but I also had some other experience, whether it was from grant writing, which I did earlier on in my graduate program, my journalism background. All those areas helped me to be prepared to make myself marketable when I got on the market. So what I want to share with you today is kind of the steps and processes that you want to focus on as you start developing your career as a writer. And one of the most important things you can do is understand that because competition is intense and because in some ways writing has become a recreational form for lots and lots of people. I run a writer's retreat. The Ossabaw Island Writer's Retreat. I've put it on since 2011. Once or twice a year, we put on a retreat and we invite writers to come over. There are some scholarships, but a lot of people pay to come and spend 5 days on an island with faculty members, fiction writers, poets, creative nonfiction writers, and work with their manuscripts. And many of them are doing that as a way to not only develop their own writing, but also as a way to just satisfy their own needs for writing, just for their own pleasure. And many of them want to get published. And nowadays, with the advent of self-publishing being much easier today, on-demand printing, all that stuff makes it much easier to print material and set up an account on Amazon and put your books up there and start selling. 20 years ago, that wasn't available at all. So the competition was less. But now there's a lot of people putting stuff out there. And there are a lot more media that are trying to grab the attention of the audience. So you really have to be strategic when you're thinking about this. It's not really an option anymore just to write your novel or your poems or do some creative nonfiction, memoir, and then expect that everybody's going to just kind of be jumping on your work and saying, this is great, let's promote this person and put them up front. You have to do a lot of that part of the work on your own. So let's get started. first thing that the chapter 3 goes over and talks about, which I think is a perfect starting point, is this idea of branding. I don't like that term. The author doesn't like the term, but that is what you're trying to do. Is you're trying to develop your own brand, the brand of who you are and what you would like to get done, what you would like to accomplish, particularly when it comes to your writing and your work. So it's really about how your work is perceived by the audience too. So that's the other thing I want you to really focus on as we go through this semester, is that you're always producing something for an audience. So what do you want them to know about you? How do you want to present yourself to that audience? And once you've decided that, well, then you can start developing people that are also interested in the same topics or issues or areas of interest that they may be interested in, and you start making that connection. So one of the first things that the book suggests you do is to make an inventory of what it is that you see coming up in your work as you write your work. Certain themes, certain ideas that seem to crop up in your work over and over. So, for example, one of the things that I had going for me, I suppose, in the beginning was I had a particular interest in making sure that I was developing stories and poems about Appalachia. My family on my mother's side is from Western Kentucky. My father's side is from North Georgia. They're what a lot of people would refer to as hillbillies. But my experience of being with those people growing up was a kind of a beautiful experience. I really loved being around my family and the people that I met, living in those areas, living a life that was quickly disappearing. And so I wanted to somehow maybe record those experiences, but not only that, I also wanted to show these people in that community in a human light, help the rest of the world to maybe come away from the stereotypes they have built up in their minds about the people living in that area, what they might call hillbillies. And so the themes of a lot of my first poems and even my first novel, it's set in eastern Tennessee, and purposefully so because I want to, again, explore the idea of these people who maybe don't have the cultural or educational advantages that some people have, that they are maybe just as smart, just as interesting, just as fun and loving and caring as the best people around the world are anywhere. So that helped me to kind of have that area that I was interested in. I also noticed in my poems certain elements that kept showing up. For example, I love nature a lot, so a lot of my poems and my fiction focuses on nature and the beauty of nature. And I even have some emblems in my work. I like hawks, for example, so you might find reoccurring themes about hawks or birds that come up in my stories and in my poems. So those are the kind of things you might want to look at in your own work to try to figure out, what are your prime interests or themes for your work. Once you've inventoried that and written it down, then you start having maybe an idea of how you can start promoting that that brand for that. That's part of who you are. It's part of what you're doing. A big part of what we're trying to do nowadays is to give our audience a piece of us, as it were, in the sense of audiences today really want to feel like they have a personal connection. Now, we don't want to give them every element of our lives, but you do have to, today, you do have to be able to communicate with them, whether it's through social media, a social media site that you can, when they maybe put comments about some works that you've done, that you can reply back, help them feel a part of that world that you're building for yourself and the community that you're going to be operating in. So before you do any of that, though, you need to work, get your own work produced and published. All right. So none of this will matter if you're not writing and publishing. So while this is all going on, you've got to write and write and write, and then send your work off for publication. And get it out there on the market. And that's another reason why freelance writing can be an opportunity to get your name and your work out there beyond your creative world. Sometimes it's easier to get those jobs than it is to win a contest, because oftentimes for a poet, for example, in order to get a book published, you have to win some kind of regional or local or national contest, and those are very difficult to win, and they cost money to enter these contests. So you don't only get paid. Not only do you not get paid, but you have to pay to get your work produced. So, whereas freelance writing, if a publisher or editor likes your idea and you get published, well, then you get paid for it, even if it's just a little bit. And sometimes you can get more than just a little bit. So expand your desire to write beyond just your own genre that you are in love with. And so once you've started producing some stuff and getting some stuff out there, well, then you also want to tell a story about why you produce the work that you produce, and that helps to build your network too. So you want to look for ways of once you have the story to tell, once you know what your work is about, then you have something to share with others when you do meet them. And that brings us to where you're going to meet those other folks. Well, you need to really kind of become a part of the writing community. And that means developing mentors, getting mentors that will help you, that will along the way kind of be in your court. Oftentimes they start with faculty members if you're in a program, but outside of that, I mean, if you are going out into the world of writers, you're going to readings, maybe attending conferences, maybe going on a retreat. You're going to be meeting people who can be folks that will possibly become a mentor or someone who supports what you're doing or admires what you're doing. For example, I had published a couple of books of poems before I published my first novel, and one of the reasons is because I didn't know if I could write a novel, but I was at a retreat and I read the first chapter of my novel, and after I read it, one of the visitors there, Craig Johnson, who had written a series of novels. In fact, the TV show Longmire is based on his novels. He was there, and he came up to me afterwards and said, you really need to get that published. And I said, well, this is the first chapter, and that means I have to finish the novel. And so, he got behind me and said, well, get it done, start writing, and you can send the manuscripts to me and let me read over them, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. So those kinds of opportunities are really important. I also had an opportunity of getting an agent when I was doing some work in the community for a book festival, and I happened to meet a man who had just retired to the Savannah area, who was the president of Simon & Schuster. I was sitting beside him at lunch, and I looked over at him and I said, "Hey, I'm Tony Morris. I'm here helping to bring poets to the festival. Nice to meet you. And by the way, I've kind of started working on a novel, and The only problem is I don't know if I'm really any good at it. I'm a good poet, but I don't know if I'm a good fiction writer. Would you mind taking a look and letting me know what you think?" And he agreed to do so and liked it enough to get in touch with me and say, here are a couple names of agents you might want to contact, and I'll let them know you'll be sending the manuscript your way. So, those are the kind of opportunities that you want to look for. Um, and so you need to get in those communities, develop people that influence, like the two guys I just talked about are gatekeepers. You also want to develop fans, evangelists. I think the author in our text calls them. And so, how do you do that? Well, you need to get out, like I said, to place it to events, book events, readings, conferences that you hear about, and when you get out, then you want to talk to these people. And when you talk to them, it's not about telling them about everything you're going to do. What you're actually trying to do is develop a relationship. So really, you want to find out about them, ask them questions, and then listen to them. Uh, Maybe you might want to ask them, what are you most excited? What's the project you're most excited about working on now? Or what is your biggest challenge on the project you're working on now? And then listen to them. A huge part of building community is showing that you're about helping others, not about, I want to get help from you. So it's not about you, it's about helping others in your area. And, not surprisingly, by doing that, people tend to appreciate you. They tend to remember you, and they tend to want to return the favor, as it were. So really work on developing those connections in the community, in the writing community, wherever you can find them, and become, as the book says, a literary citizen, right? That's what you would like to become. And the other thing you want to do is make sure that you're well versed in the writers who seem to be interested in those same topics or issues or modes of story that you're interested in. Really spend a lot of time reading. You need to be well aware of what's going on in that particular market into which you're wanting to place your work. And the best way to do that is by reading others who are publishing in that market and finding out, how they're telling their stories, which ones, how are they approaching their themes, how are they approaching their ideas, and maybe even get to know them. Send a lot of them. You can find them on social media, and you can begin to interact with them by commenting on their posts. Maybe even asking them how you might be able to help, and letting other people know about these folks, getting the word out for them. Again, you're helping your broader writing community by doing that, and that gets your name out there in a good way. Readers really love stories because of the author. They buy the authors instead of the books in many ways. When I first started studying poetry, I would find a poem I liked in some journal, and I would look up the author's name, and then I would go out to the bookstore or the library, and I would find books by the author. And then if I liked the first book, then I would buy the next book and the next book. So you want to really get yourself in a place where the people are buying you and your theme, your style, your tone, as opposed to just buying your book. So the last thing I want to kind of touch on today is the pitch, making the pitch. And making a pitch is not it's not difficult, but it's not easy either. And I really like how she suggests in the book to make sure that you have your ideas down. So do a short 100 to 150 word bio. Really condense it and try to say everything you need to say in that short bio about the most important things about what you're doing, the work you're doing, right? Um, and as you approach people, you need to understand what their needs or their motivation is. What are they looking for? And then have something desirable to sell them. And again, this takes a little bit of homework on your side, because you have to find out a little bit about who these people are beforehand, find out what kind of work they're doing, find out about the kinds of stories or books or poems that they're publishing or they enjoy. And you can do this by reading the magazines that they edit, going into the bookstore. I mean, you can spend time at a Barnes & Noble in their newsstand, which has all the magazines on it, and just pick up the magazine and start reading through the magazine. And as you do, maybe make notes about the kinds of stories they accept, the kind of work that they are interested in publishing, and that's really the best way that you can get to know how you can satisfy their needs. Of course, you need to approach it at the right time, and that's sometimes a matter of chance, but also it's a matter of being familiar with the industry and knowing when publication dates are, and how far ahead does an editor need to have your work or your proposal before publication. And again, you can find this out by going and researching the magazines or the websites that you're trying to pitch a story to or pitch an idea to. You need to have a little bit of confidence or charm, or both is good. When I was talking to the president of Simon & Schuster, part of the conversation I was having with him, it was kind of joking about this idea about, I'm a good poet, but I don't know if I can write or not. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and if you don't want to do this, well, then I totally understand. I appreciate it anyhow. So it's kind of this laid back idea of kind of approaching them as somebody who has some confidence, but also has a little bit of humility, understanding that they're coming at the person in a way that's not overly arrogant. And then there's some luck involved, of course, but I think the luck is going to come in to play if you're prepared for those opportunities to come along. I had a teacher early on who said, he was talking about the idea of when the muses will come. I mean, in the ancient Greece, the muse was kind of the god of beautiful ideas that would kind of come into the artist and then inspire the artist to write. And so we were having a conversation about how it's not a good idea to wait for the muse before you wrote whatever it was you were writing. That you can't demand the muse to come when you want it to come, that the muse will come when it comes. But if you wanted to make sure that you did a good job, you needed to make sure that you're ready for the muse. In other words, you were prepared. And to be prepared, you had to be writing all along the way until the muse comes. So it's similar to luck. The muse is luck. Be prepared by doing your work, doing the writing, doing all the work you have to do ahead of time. And that way, when the muse or luck does appear, then you're ready for it. And you can jump on it, and you can take it the furthest that's going to be able to go at the time. The last thing I'm going to touch on is, or the last two things, look for opportunities. Keep your eye open for opportunities. You may find them again at conferences, at readings, but you can also find them anywhere not anywhere, but maybe at a coffee house or whatever. If you hear somebody talking about behind you and you're sitting having coffee at a coffee shop and they're talking about writing, maybe turn around and say, "Hey, are you a writer? Hey, do you write in this area? Do you live in this area?" I mean, look for those opportunities and don't be afraid to talk to people. So the last thing I want to touch on is bios, though, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them right now, except to say you need to practice writing your bio first as a very kind of shortened, condensed bio, 100 to 150 words, where you can put the information, the most important information. For example, if you have published, or if you've won any awards, or if you've had any special notoriety, you want to kind of put that at the top, and a little bit of information about your private life. I mean, I have, if you go to my website at TonyRayMorris.com, you'll see on the bio that I talk about the background. I'll talk about that Appalachian history. And that's my longer bio. It's not my short bio. It's the one that's expanded, the one you want to write after you've maybe published a book or had a publication of a collection of poetry or a memoir. But again, it gets a little more personal. It doesn't get too personal, but it tells a little bit of a story behind why I'm a writer and what I feel like is important in my work. So yeah, that's the other thing you can do is check out the bios of other writers. A lot of times there's a short bio listed on the back of their books that are published, so you can read those and see how they're put together, and use those as kind of a template for how you're going to put your bio together. So as you go through this week and work on your assignment, keep in mind that hold on a second. I'm just opening up web pages here. Keep in mind that that your work is going to shine. I hope, I believe, and that's what you have to believe too. Your work is going to shine, but in addition to that beautiful work that you write, that you have to be doing the business also at the same time. And so as you work to this week to create your kind of writing career vision outline, and your career goals and your challenges, keep all this in mind and use this material. I mean, really the reason I'm having you do these assignments is so that you can address these ideas about how to start promoting yourself as a writer, and how to start building your career. Once you know these things about yourself, well, then that's really the starting point of building the story that you can tell others about why they want and why they'd like to support you and follow you and keep up with your work as you pursue this career in writing. So I hope you have a great week. If you have any questions, remember you can always email me at tmorris@georgiasouthern.edu, and we'll keep moving through this week. I will be looking at your what you turned in for me for the beginning of the week here, and getting information or comments back to you here in the next 4 or 5 or 6 days. Okay. Hope you guys are having a good week so far, and I will look forward to seeing you again soon. In the meantime, take care